1. So I am a 19-year-old male and have been looking for a job for a couple of months to help pay for college and to help pay for my up-and-coming wedding. While I was job searching, I applied at a fast food place that rhymes with Barbies. Next day, I get a call asking if I'd like an interview for today at 2:30 p.m. PST. I showed up 10 minutes early, walk in, and am greeted with the following scene. 2 employees standing behind the counter laughing and showing each other something on their phone. A woman who is running around looking like she's on the verge of tears, and the manager, Karen, critiquing the woman who is almost about to cry. Okay, I don't know what happened, so I won't judge right away, I stupidly told myself. Karen noticed me, and the following conversation ensued. Can I help you? Yeah, I'm here for an interview at 2:30. Interview? I didn't know I had an interview today. I spoke with Jane Doe. She said it would be with Karen. That's me. Okay, I'll be with you in a few minutes. I thanked her and stood off to the side. It took about 10 minutes before she came over with a receipt and a pen. We sat down and she started. Okay, just write down your name and number for me. I do so. So have you worked fast food before? Yes, I worked at Rec Ronald's for about a month. Why are you not working there now? My mental health was affecting my work ethic. Karen cuts me off, looks me up and down with a disgusted look, and in the most judgmental voice I have ever heard, uttered from another human being, What's wrong with you? I was shocked and just sat there for a few seconds trying to process just what happened. Before I said something about how I used to have a stalker, but it was figured out and won't be an issue anymore. Again, she looked me up and down and in a judgy voice said, Are you, stable now? She said, leaning in. I was mortified and I started to stand up, and she also stood up and continued, All right, so we're hiring in about 3 weeks. We might call you again for another interview around there. I replied, No thank you, Karen. She was genuinely surprised. What? Why? This made me extremely uncomfortable, and I don't think this will be a good work environment for me. I didn't let her say anything and just left. When I went to the car, I checked the time and realized the entire interview process took 2 minutes. I was livid and just left thankful that I didn't learn about that environment while working. And just to clarify why I told her about the mental health and stalker situation, while I was applying for jobs, I had an interview ask why I left, and I said that it wasn't what I was looking for and that I wasn't meshing well with others. They told me that they had called and asked my official reason, and that they wouldn't be continuing since I wasn't honest. When I hear, Why aren't you still working there now, I try to give the official reason, just in case they reach out to my previous employer. 2. I work at a little shithole of a store making $10 an hour and deal with jerks all day. It's located in a trashy part of town with a lot of homeless and entitled people. Honestly, if not for the customers, it wouldn't be a bad place to work at. So I just get on shift with one of my supervisors and manager when this one guy walks in and immediately has an attitude. He's short, fat, and missing his front teeth. It was just me at the front, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Your manager here. Go get them." Now, I don't know which one he was referring to, as a lot of times customers would refer to my supervisors as my managers. And I explained that to him, hoping he would clarify who he was looking for. I also didn't want to get my manager as, shitty part of town and some of the customers are creeps, like 50-year-old men who hit on my 20-something co-workers. So I asked him if he needed help with anything, to figure out why he was looking for my manager. He doesn't say and just snaps, "Hey, you got your manager!" I just shrug and grab the both of them to deal with him, and this is where I learn why he was here. The guy claimed he was here the night before and had slipped on the wet floor, which I believed at first because I was working that night before and do remember him checking out. And the floor was wet, as I mop every night. I normally wait an hour before closing to mop, hitting areas that I know don't get much foot traffic first, and then finishing the more busier areas after closing, like the main entrance. But this one night was super busy, and after mopping one aisle, a line of customers waltzed up to the counter, and I got busy dealing with them that I forgot to put up wet floor signs. My bad, I know, and I did get written up because of it. So it was completely possible he did slip and fall. However, as he talked more and the interaction drew on, it slowly got more and more apparent that he was, to put it frankly, talking out of his ass. For starters, he said he slipped and fell in aisle A, and knocked over a whole shelf of things. Aisle A happens to be right next to the counter where I was. It also happened to be an aisle for car parts, sprays, flashlights, that kind of thing. So, all the stuff he could have knocked over was heavy, loud things. Yet me and my supervisor, the same dude who was working right now, didn't hear anything. He also claimed that he told the cashier at the time, me, what had happened. Spoilers, he didn't. All he did was buy his Dr. Pepper and left. He also then claimed he had a recording of him falling, and of my supervisor, the same one who was working that night, admitting to seeing him fall. This pissed my supervisor off, as now the guy was straight up lying about him, and didn't miss a beat calling him out. The guy got louder, now almost shouting that he knew who our district manager was, and that his uncle was a lawyer. I'm not even joking, and that he had a case. The two traded words, my supervisor keeping his cool and just repeating that he never said anything and that he didn't see it happen, while the guy repeated he was going to get him fired and how, "I was just going to file a complaint, but now I'm going to sue you." He made it clear he was going to sue both the company and my supervisor for his attitude. It was clear that the guy was just trying to goad my supervisor into a fight, so he could claim we were being hostile. Luckily, my manager got my supervisor to leave and pretty much separated the two. I stuck around, though, because he wasn't coming down and I wasn't going to leave him alone with my manager. Eventually, my manager gets on the phone to file a complaint for him, refused to do so himself, and she asks for his name, which is required for filing a complaint, and, because he just threatened legal action against us. He refused to give his name. She asked for his phone number, so they can call him regarding questions he refused to tell her. She asked for a detailed account, either through email or a letter so our HR knows what happened. He refused that too. He pretty much just refused to give us anything that could be tied to him. My manager just hands him a list of corporate contacts and he leaves after once again shouting he was going to sue and get all three of us fired. I get fairly written up and now we're having a store meeting. I don't know if it's tied to this incident or not. My manager did later admit there was nothing on the camera. My supervisor and I chatted about it, and I made it very clear that he came in looking for a fight, and a lot of his story didn't make a whole lot of sense. He marched in, cussed at me, and ended up shouting so loud that he actually scared off a customer. Ultimately, nothing that bad happened. We had a meeting on what to do in situations like that, which was basically tell a higher up and let them deal with it. The guy came back one more time since then. Still refused to talk to me, and just gave my manager a card from his lawyer. Couldn't even find his name on Google. I chatted with another customer who was there during that guy's meltdown. He told me he had to leave the store because he was about to deck the asshole in the face. He also believes his claim was bull since he was a very heavy-set guy which would have taken down the whole shelf if he had fallen on it. My supervisor also told me there was no way I was getting fired since one of our cashiers is on very thin ice with our manager, and another supervisor is about to leave to give birth, so that would only leave us with about 5 employees. 3. This happened about 10 years ago. I was 22 at the time and had to have knee surgery to clear out shredded cartilage about a week after my birthday. This story takes place 3 days after the surgery. My mom, a nurse, and that's important for later, my husband, a boyfriend of 2 years at the time, and my best friend decided to take me shopping to try to get my mind off the surgery and to pick up craft supplies, so I wouldn't be bored while off work. I should mention it was an orthopedic surgery, so I didn't need to use crutches if I didn't feel the need, and should be walking some. When we got to the craft store, not our first shop, my husband and best friend made me use one of the store's wheelchairs. I was being stubborn because I could still walk, just not very fast or long without breaks. Since I really didn't want to be in the chair, husband and friend decided to make a game out of it, like who could push me the fastest. Now, you might think we're wrong, but let me state that this was the middle of the day on a Monday, so the store was not busy, and my husband and best friend would check the aisle to make sure that the coast was clear. We were not running, drifting around corners, using the brakes while moving, doing wheelies, or having more than one person in the chair. We were just speed walking with clear aisles and seeing how far I could go with one push from a dead stop. We were still very careful with the wheelchair. After one of the speeding events, I was looking at something in an aisle, and my mom pulled husband and best friend away to look at something. It was something she thought I would like, and was going to get it as a surprise. Well, I decided I didn't want whatever it was that I was looking at, and stood up to put it back. This is when Karen appears berating me for using a wheelchair as a toy, and how there are people who actually need it. I calmly explain, I just had surgery and that's why I'm using it. She then goes on and on about how she saw what my friends were doing and that I'm obviously lying. I explained that they were trying to make me feel better and that I would tell them to push me normally from now on. This did not appease Karen, and she is still berating me. At this point, I roll up my pant leg to show her the compression bandages I am still wearing. She goes on about how that means nothing, and I could have just wrapped my knee as an excuse in case we were caught. And she bet the other people with me also have their knees wrapped. My group returns at this point and says the same thing as me. Karen is still not having it, and we're all lying. I look at my mom and ask if I can take off my bandages as they were supposed to be removed the next day. She says I really shouldn't, but she could re-wrap it for me if needed. At this point, I take off the bandages before anyone can stop me, showing Karen my knee in all its post-surgery glory. It was bruised, swollen, and crusty at the incision sites. And you still see the iodine on my skin. Karen's face goes white, and she looks like she's going to be sick. She starts stammering about how I didn't need to go that far, as my mom is rewrapping my knee, scolding me, and Karen, under her breath. I look at Karen and say, "What else did you want me to do? I told you, they told you, I showed you the bandages. You wouldn't get off your high horse, and insisted we were lying." At this point, a staff member comes to check if we need any help, and Karen runs for the door. We had a pleasant rest of our day and stopped for ice cream on the way home. 4. To preface, I work at a medical supply store in the Metro Detroit area in the respiratory department, a customer-facing position, so I deal with entitled and irritating people all day long. This all happened today, May 17th, 2023. It was unusually calm for 12:30 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, so I decided that instead of waiting to go to lunch at 1 p.m., I would go to lunch at 12:30, half an hour earlier than I normally would. And my colleagues were okay with it since it was unusually calm at the time. When I got back from lunch, we were kind of busy. I did clock back in, but I had to use the restroom, so I clocked in and went and used the restroom. When I came back from the restroom, the person who I had been training with was still with the patient that she had been with when I got back from lunch initially. One of my other colleagues was helping her to run the order for the patient, female, around age 65, Medicare-aged. Maybe slightly younger. I wasn't fully paying attention to the finer details in her account. When the person I have been training switches spots so that I can sit down at the computer, the patient starts to complain about the fact that we don't have any nebulizer cups in stock in the store, and that we should have a sign-up saying that we don't have any nebulizer cups at this time. Like, I totally understand that you're frustrated that I don't have any in the store at this moment in time, and that you have to go or send your spouse to my warehouse to go and pick up your supplies. The warehouse is legit a block and a half at the most, away from the store I work at. It's not like we told you that we don't have any at the store or the warehouse, and that we would either have to mail them to you, or that you would have to go to one of our other branches to get the supplies, which is a pain in the ass. As I'm trying to explain this to her, she's going on and on about how when you call the store, the people who answer the phones should tell you whether or not something is in stock at the store that you want to go to. That's not the job of the people who answer the phones in the customer service department. Their job is to place orders for people to pick up at their nearest store, at their earliest convenience, or to have the orders mailed to the patient's house. This lady also goes on to say that it's my fault that we don't have her supplies in stock at the store, and that it's my fault for leaving the person I've been training all by herself. The trainee was not by herself. I was at lunch, and she had our other 2 colleagues right there next to her, and blah blah blah. After she goes on for another minute or 2, she steps away from the computer I'm working at and goes on to get something else in the store. About half an hour later, the spouse comes up to me with the order that was placed while I was at lunch. The order that had been placed was for the nebulizer cups that last a month. If you have a commercial insurance or Medicare, they will cover 2 of the cups that last a month per month. The spouse goes on to state that the order is wrong and that what they got was not what the patient wanted. He was being very polite about it, no attitude or anything. I cancelled the incorrect order and generated a new order for the correct item and sent the spouse back to the warehouse to pick up the order. Another half an hour or so goes by and I'm setting up a person with a sleep apnea machine. And this lady walks up to me and gets up in my face. After trying to get someone who works in our orthotics and prosthetics department to help her, and complaining to her spouse that the order was again wrong, it was not wrong this time. I've been doing my job for 2 years by now and I know what her insurance will cover for a nebulizer. I calmly and politely try to explain to her that her order was not wrong, and that her insurance will cover 1 cup that lasts 6 months every 6 months. And she is going on about how she was told she could get 2 of them, and that this is stupid and a load of shit about you people are fucking useless and blah blah blah. Essentially, she is trying to blame this all on me, because I went to lunch at 12:30. She got back on her horse about how I shouldn't have left the trainee by herself, and I told her, using my customer service voice point blank, "If that's how you want to think, that's on you," not in those exact words, but along those lines. And I walked away as I was in the middle of helping someone else with their sleep apnea machine. The girl in the orthotics and prosthetics department followed me back to a back room where equipment is kept, out of patient sight, and asked if I was okay because this lady was literally all up in my face in personal space, shouting at me because I messed up her order, and that we have terrible business practices and that our customer service sucks. This lady was wearing a mask, so I didn't get spit on or anything like that, but if I hadn't been at work, I could have poked her in the eyes or something. Not that I actually would have done that. I'm way too much of a pushover to do something like that. The orthotics girl asked me if this lady wanted a manager, and I told her that the lady didn't mention anything about getting a manager. The orthotics girl was going to stick up for me and take my side, so it pretty much ended there. Entitled people suck, and they really know how to ruin your day. 5. I posted this one about a friend who was our neighbor. She was fun to talk to, but in small doses, especially when her kids were around. I'm like my dad, who always liked to help the less fortunate, and I'm always helping people, like when I don't need anything, I give it away to the neighbors, Salvation Army, and homeless shelters. This friend and her 3 pushy, aggressive, demanding, needy kids wanted to eat everything and anything at other people's houses. They would grab anything edible without asking for permission. As giving as I am, I can't tolerate that kind of behavior. These kids had no respect for anyone and act like they're entitled to everything. They took advantage of me when I told them they can help themselves to things in my house, and they don't need to ask, which was a big mistake, because they were over almost every day and asking for money and things to eat or drink and to come swimming. I had to start telling them no. Of course, they all screamed bloody murder while the mom looked on and screamed mad that they were denied things. She has money to smoke the most expensive cigarettes and buy alcohol and beers and wines. She could spend some on getting her kids snacks, which she claims the kids wipe out in a day when she does buy it. They moved out a year or so ago, and it was such a relief. I saw them from time to time. Last Easter, which was also my close friend's son's birthday, she had a party at a park close by. My husband and I took our little kids there. We stopped by at a coffee shop, and I got myself a small chai latte. She was there with her kids. We exchanged some pleasantries, and her oldest son, 14, tries to hand me a solo cup. I said, "Why are you giving this to me?" He said, "I want some coffee." I said it's tea, and I'm not sharing because it's a small drink that I was craving. He goes haywire and says,
"You didn't think that I would want some and got a bigger drink?"
I was pissed and told him that even if it was a larger drink, I would not share with someone so unappreciative. I set my tea down. It's some time to pick up my daughter. I went to get my cup. It's not close to my side, but it's clear across the table where this 14-year-old is standing. I loudly said, "How did my cup get there?" He shrugged, and another lady, who I had never met, told me that he picked it up and drank some. I was livid and took the cup and drained it on the ground and threw it in the trash can. He starts screaming that I could have just given it to him instead. His mother was scowling at me. We just decided to leave. No apologies, nothing. 3 days ago, I get a call from his mother, making small talk. And then she asked me if they can move in with us into our new house with her kids. I told her no, that it wouldn't be a good idea. Then her 14-year-old monstrous child comes on to ask me to let them stay at our home till they find a place for them to get. I kept saying no and that I would not be talking to him and put his mom back on. She put the caller on speaker and the kid just wouldn't shut his mouth, and that how helpful they would be to us. I had to hang up and block their phone number. They also called many of our other friends to ask the same and were told no. They don't help at all, and they're burdens to everyone else. They got evicted from their place because they had a filthy apartment, and they had mice and roaches. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 114. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Please boop the like button before you go if you'd be so good. I would appreciate it. Right, I don't think there's any other business today, so we'll move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you have any vacation plans this year? And if not, what are you planning to do when you have time off? Speaking personally, I don't like going anywhere. I'm very much a homebody. Snuggled up at home, watching TV, good food, fan on, keeping me nice and cool, or the heater on, keeping me warm, depending on the temperature. That's how I enjoy my time off. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.